Hello and welcome to the Top Corner Podcast Bitesize edition. It is a brand new section of our podcast to cover the midweek games that have occurred throughout the week. There's plenty to talk about, plenty of big breaking news from around the world, mainly in the Premier League. But we're going to try and do it in a bite-sized programme. Joining me today in the studio, we've got our very special guest. He's on with us every single week on the Top Corner podcast. He loves the finale feature. He's the quiz master. It's Rowan. How are we doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I don't like that you call me special, but I'll take it. I will take it.
Special in a good way.
Thank you. I'll take it.
But we've got plenty of stuff to talk about in a short period of time. We had a couple of games in the midweek, which we talked about in the Top Corner podcast, which is available on YouTube right now. So if you haven't watched that, do feel free to go and watch that and have a look at what we talked about. There was a lot that we went into detail, but we decided it'd be a great idea to do a Top Corner podcast bite-sized edition to cover those games in the midweek.
Also, just feel free to, if you've got a question, always, give us a comment.
We are live on both Periscope and YouTube, so to those of you watching on Periscope, hi, you won't be able to see us on the cameras, unfortunately, because they're not connected up, but for those on YouTube, you can see us on the cameras now, which is just that camera there, so I'll give you a cheeky little wave on that camera. But I think without further ado, it's probably a great idea to go straight into the first subject of the day. It was, in my opinion, the biggest game of the weekend.
One of the best.
Not just in terms of stature, but the whole approach of the game was Liverpool needed to win to extend their lead at the table.
Yeah.
But it was Everton that needed to win more for the job of Marco Silva. And it didn't really go to plan, did it? Let's be real.
It was when you're losing 5-2, it isn't good.
Quite. Could you say it was an embarrassing result? Because
yes.
the quality of the Liverpool goals was incredible, to put it into two easy words.
I don't know if you say embarrassing, because Everton are 18th. So if this was, let's say, if this was Norwich, we'd be like, hey, the bottom of the league. I do feel sorry for Marco Silva, because I think the players didn't play too bad, but no. Liverpool were just on another level that game.
I think Liverpool, on their day, that was a game basically where Liverpool turned up on the day.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have said in the past, when Liverpool have played games against Villa and Sheffield United, that they have never really turned up to their full strength. But I think in the one game that I think Liverpool fans would have expected the team to turn up and play their hearts out, they came to well, they didn't come to Anfield, but they played their hearts out at home.
Yeah, I mean, that Origi goal was Lovren.
It was stunning. I mean, the ball from Lovren,
beauty of a ball.
It's unbelievable. It's the Klopp effect. When you think about it, it really is the Klopp effect.
I don't think I'll get talked about enough of the ball from a centre-back, because Origi's control was great.
Oh, it was a stunning goal from Origi. And I've got to say, credit definitely has to go to Divock Origi, who scored 2 goals. There was Shaqiri, Mane and Wijnaldum, who also scored other goals.
Yeah.
Everton, they scored 2. It was one from Michael Keane and one from Richarlison. By the way, if you could just hear that sound that came through, I'm sincerely sorry. I think the audio, somebody's left the audio on in there. Do you know when somebody can talk through the microphone? So,
well, in fairness, what I've realised with all the podcasts before is you can hear that door opening. Nothing we can do, so you just have to put
unfortunately.
Up with it.
But the goals were stunning. The quality of the balls. Alexander-Arnold, once again, had a stunning game. He's one of the world's best right-backs as of current.
Is he the best?
I'd say I think he's the best.
I'm trying to think, but yeah.
I think when you look at the other, like, the good right backs around the world, you've got players like Nelson Semedo for Barcelona. You've got Dani Carvajal for Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. But the days of Dani Alves being the best right back are long gone.
Yeah, I think it's got to be.
Alexander-Arnold's taken the mantle.
I'm just thinking of Premier League teams. You look at the big teams. There's no one. Azpilicueta really, but I think he's moved sides.
Azpilicueta, he's still at Chelsea, but
no, I meant he's in positions.
Oh, positions wise, I don't really know, to be fair.
He kind of left back, then went centre back,
and then went to right back, and it's weird because he changes positions a lot, but I guess it shows just how versatile he is as a player. But for me, I think defensive-wise, Alexander-Arnold's got a lot to work on as a player.
If they wanted, they could play him as a right forward, right midfielder probably.
There was a lot of people saying, why doesn't he play as a centre midfielder and give him a try there? And I think, in my opinion, he could probably play there, but I just think...
There's no depth for Liverpool at that defender position.
I think it'd be too much of a risk. You've got Joe Gomez, which, he's a good player on his day, but he's not reaching the same form that he hit before he got his injury. Yeah. But for me, I do think Alexander-Arnold is the best. Do you think the same yourself?
Yeah, currently, there's no one that is better than him.
I think you look at assists as well. He's right up there with the elite in terms of assists.
And that's because he is so forward-thinking.
Oh, yeah. That's how Robertson thinks as well. The two Liverpool fullbacks on their day are incredible. They're unstoppable at times, which is crazy to think because you'd expect the wingers Salah and Mane and Firmino to be the unstoppable ones, but then you've got to try and stop the fullbacks as well. And it's a crazy team.
Speaking of Salah and Firmino, not starting.
No,
which was a very, I think, shocking thing.
It was a very weak side, which I guess obviously we're coming into the Christmas period. They've got the Club World Cup, the Champions League, so they played a front three of Shaqiri, Origi and Mane, who Mane played at striker, which he's done that before, and to be fair, he played quite a decent game.
That front three played incredible. Shaqiri was a standout player for me.
Oh, Shaqiri was
a guy
brilliant.
Who doesn't, I think we discussed it yesterday, a guy who doesn't get all the plaudits. He's been in a lot of places. I think he's really found his stride at Liverpool as being that sort of bench player. Yeah. But can still make an impact when they bring one. And that's like the Klopp effect.
I think as well, the fact that Shaqiri's been out for quite some time, there's a lot of Liverpool fans basically crying out and saying, where's Shaqiri? Because he's not in the team, he's not on the bench, they didn't know there was an injury, and he's just come into this game. And he never looked like if he has picked up an injury previous, it never looked like he'd been injured. He just came into the game, he showed his quality, he showed his skills, and he was one of the players that really tore Everton apart. They could just not deal with them.
It was just him trying to show, look, I should start over Salah. Not going to happen.
But he'd certainly put on a great display, and I put a stat down on the notes that we have. Liverpool's only 5 shots on target resulted in goals. The half-time score was 4-2. I found this morning Sky Sports described the game as first half goal bonanza, leave toffees in sticky situation, which I thought was a fantastic headline. Everton do find themselves, as you said yourself, they're moving to the bottom 3 in 18th after Southampton beat Norwich. Was it 2-0 Southampton beat Norwich, I think? 2-0 or 2-1?
I thought it was 2-1.
It might be 2-0 or 2-1, which resulted in the sacking, which is the next subject I think it perfectly ties into, is the sacking of Marco Silva, who has had quite a torrid time at Everton, and unfortunately, he's found the sack for it. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the sacking?
Well, I think the sacking is deserved in terms of results and where the club is, because Everton are a top 10 side for sure, and they shouldn't be in relegation. Do I think Marco Silva personally as a manager deserves it? No, because I think he's a great manager, as we've seen. I think the players, for some reason, just weren't performing for him. Maybe we saw it with Pochettino, players have lost faith. Maybe that's what it was with him. It's just... I mean, we've got the statement that Everton really saying Everton Football Club can confirm that manager Marco Silva has left the club. Majority shareholder Farhad Masari, Chairman Bill Kenwright, and the board of directors would like to thank Marco for his service over the last 18 months and will wish him well for the future. Doug Ferguson has obviously took temporary charge of them,
which is going to be interesting.
It'll be very interesting considering they are playing Chelsea at the weekend. But Chelsea team have been playing very well.
I mean, obviously, they put at the bottom the club aims to confirm a new permanent manager as swiftly as possible, which is...
Speaking of that, who do you think?
Certainly interesting. I think the bookies are saying they think that it's going to be David Moyes, and to be honest, I think it is going to be David Moyes.
I could see it.
But the question is, do you see David Moyes as somebody who should come in permanently, or do you see him as the type of person to steady the ship and then leave next season to bring in a higher caliber manager? Because it's a tricky one, because You see Moyes in the past when he was at Everton, he did such a fantastic job, as he called it, a shoestring budget he had for the side. He was bringing in players like, let's give credit to Fellaini. He brought Fellaini in and he was incredible at the club. He had players like Kevin Morales, which at the time he was doing really good. Aruna Kone, which, to be fair, less said about him over his Everton past.
He never signed the biggest players, but when he signed some of them did make an impact.
Exactly, and they never really spent hefty money to bring players in, and I guess
relied on the players.
The Everton board look at that and think, well, he's the man to lead us again, and they've always had a vision, Everton, and they've always talked about this particular vision of getting into the top 4 and the top 6, and I just feel like, do you see David Moyes as the man to be the manager to take them to that level?
I don't know. I think if it was Moyes when he was first at Everton, then he left, had a break of football, came back straight to Everton, possibly. I just think with the managerial fails he's sort of had in the past 4 years-ish, will he be the same manager? Well, probably not.
That's the tricky thing, isn't it?
We've seen it. He's got a long history with Everton, and we've seen it with other managers. They've come back to a club and they've done well because they know the club well, they know the setup. David Moyes will already be used to the budget they've got.
Yep.
Everton have already got a great side that couldn't get top 10 for sure. I don't think they'll go down this year.
No, I don't think they'll go down.
I think it would just be a close one this year for once.
It'd be incredibly surprising to see a club like Everton get relegated. I think when you look at things in your head, you think, nah, that'll never happen. They're one of the sides like a Liverpool or a City where you think they could never get relegated, but the possibility's still there.
Yeah, it's football.
And I guess at the end of the day, some of the stats I put down, the defeat at Liverpool was already Everton's 9th loss of the season, and after 18 months in charge of the club, it left the board no choice but to dismiss Silva. Everton are now searching for their 4th permanent boss since Roberto Martinez was sacked in May 2016.
Who's been the managers then?
They had Roberto Martinez, Sam Allardyce. Koeman was one of them, and then obviously Marco Silva.
Yeah.
In his time at the club, Marco Silva did rack up 19 wins, 11 draws, and 23 defeats after taking over from Sam Allardyce 18 months ago. With the sacking of the Everton manager, there's already been 5 managers dismissed in the Premier League this season.
Wow.
2 at Watford, 1 at Everton, 1 at Arsenal, and
big team, Tottenham. Yeah, 5 already this season, and we're not really into the busy Christmas period. We're just getting into it now, which is crazy to think. I think when he joined, there was a lot of hate because of Sam Allardyce's sacking. Yeah.
Sam Allardyce, I think, got them into the top 10, and the fans just weren't a massive fan.
After the betting, where he got fired from England?
Yeah, it was. I think it was his first job after the betting scandal.
Oh, right.
So he went there. He got Everton into the top 10, but he was dismissed because of the fans weren't supportive. Very similar in a way to how Mourinho was at getting the backing of Manchester United. Yeah. But he came into the club and he was already getting a little bit of stick off like the Sam Allardyce fans and his friends. So he was in a tricky position anyway. But I think Marco Silva is the type of manager who will go to another club, no problem.
Where do you think he will go?
I think there's always a position for him at a decent little European side. I don't think Watford would be a great idea. I think it'd be a step backwards considering the position that they're in. I'd say there'll always be a place for him in Portugal, somewhere like a Porto, Benfica, Sporting,
Braga.
A club
naming
like
all
that.
of them.
For his native side. But I do feel like he also could go to a relatively decent European side. I'm talking something like maybe a Real Betis.
That's what I was thinking.
A club that's not too far up. They're not in the Champions League, and they're just missing out on the Europa League, but he could be the type of manager to maybe try and push them to the next level. Yeah. He's got the quality.
He really does.
But I just do think at sometimes he was harshly misjudged.
Because then, looking at the result, it isn't, getting 23 defeats, getting more losses than wins is bad, but still getting 19 wins, 11 draws and 23 defeats is not a sackable worthy results. I think it's just an impact decision because of the start of the season.
I think as well, you look at the run of games that they've got. They've got Chelsea next on Saturday. Yep. I believe they've got Arsenal in the game after that. They've still got to play Manchester City, and then they've got to play Liverpool again in January for the FA Cup. So whoever does come in now, they've got a really, really tricky job on their hands. And the worry is they've got to start almost straight away and get results. And I think the issue is, if it gets to a point in January where Everton have picked up, only 1 or 2 or maybe 3 points, it's going to be a real, real worry. The club will find themselves in quite a fairly tricky situation.
Do you see them going down?
I don't see Everton going down. I don't think they're the type of club that have not enough quality to stay up. But I guess you can also look at a team like Watford and say, well, they've got good players. They've got Delafeu, Deeney on his day's pretty good. So anything can happen. The Premier League is a crazy league at the end of the day. Look at Sheffield United, look at Wolves and
Leicester,
Crystal Palace, these types of clubs that are so far up there. They've got decent amount of points. They're looking this season and thinking, well, this might be our chance to get European football and get a comfortable top 10 finish. And I think Everton, for now, they need to look at the league and say, right, this is about survival. This shouldn't be about trying to get into the top 10 or the top 6. They're not too far off because the rest of the league has been pretty poor, but survival needs to be the first instinct at the end of the day.
I think that's why you need to bring in a manager who's done it before.
Exactly. And I think, as you said before, David Moyes, the last couple of years, he has had a couple of poor jobs. He went to Manchester United, which was a tricky task in itself, taking over Ferguson.
It was always going to be hard.
Exactly. I think for any manager, it would have been a tricky situation. He had a time at Real Sociedad in Spain where he flopped there and was sacked pretty quickly. He went to Sunderland. They went down. He got sacked there. He had a pretty decent time at West Ham. He steadied the ship.
Yeah.
And I do think he does get a little bit of praise for his time at West Ham, but to go into Everton, I think it'll be interesting to see whether they bring him in as a permanent and bring him in for a couple of years, or whether they see him as an interim time of a manager.
I think that's what should happen nowadays with Premier League managers. Don't sign them to these big contracts immediately, unless you know who they are.
Yeah.
And, get them till the end of the season, okay, and then review how from December to May. How's it gone for them? If it's gone good, keep them. If it's gone meh, don't keep them.
That's fair. I think a great example of that was Chelsea when they got Gus Hiddink on the 2 interim roles. They signed him till the end of the season, and then that was it. He went off. And I think in that situation, sometimes it is good just to have somebody that comes in for a couple of months and steadies the ship. Very similar to how Bayern Munich have gone about things.
Yeah,
when they sacked Niko Kovac, they brought in their interim manager, and things have been going not too bad.
I mean, you had the loss against Leverkusen.
Yeah,
and Mönchengladbach.
Yeah, it was Leverkusen that they lost to 2-1, but that's the first loss that he's had since he's joined, considering battered Dortmund as well in the game that they played. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at Everton. I think the January transfer window will be interesting, whether they decide to splash the cash or play it safe with the players that they've got.
I think that's all to do with who they get as well.
Exactly.
There's managers who like to spend a lot of money and it works out. There's managers who don't, and it works out for them.
But then it'll be interesting to see whether, if Moyes does come back, whether he goes on a shoestring budget again. But I think, as I said, we'll see what happens at Everton. It'll certainly be an interesting topic to talk about over the next couple of weeks, considering the massive games that they've got. But we're going to move on to the other game that we talked about on Wednesday. It was Manchester United versus Spurs. And once again, it was another Premier League blockbuster that delivered. Manchester United find themselves moving into the top 6 after a win against Jose Mourinho's Spurs, which was on Wednesday evening, because Arsenal lost, which we'll briefly talk about Arsenal a little bit later on into the bite-sized edition of the podcast. There was 2 goals from Rashford. He helped his side to claim all the 3 points. They both had quite a fair amount of chances, I'm not going to lie. Rashford, I don't know if anybody has seen the clip online, he's nearly scored one of the goals of the season. Very Ronaldo-esque in the type of effort. He cuts in, he finds himself at the edge of the box on the outside, and he tries curling a shot into the top right-hand corner.
I haven't seen it.
And it just grazes the bar. Incredible chance.
Is that where I think I know what you're on about.
Yeah, it was a really, really good effort. But I have to give credit as well to Dele Alli, who scored a fantastic goal.
He's one of the players of Mourinho. He's so good, because under Poch he was dog awful.
Yeah,
I'll say it.
Fun little stat. Perfectly timed that. With his previous manager, Pochettino, Dele Alli only got 3 goals in Pochettino's last 17 games, while under Mourinho, 3 goals in 3 games. It's incredible to see the
fairness,
revolution.
There are players who were better under certain managers, but
Yeah.
the Dele Alli one is because he was not good. Like
No.
not good, but he wasn't playing for a Tottenham side. Basically, he should have been at a Watford, and he should have. And then as soon as Mourinho's come in, it's like,
Yeah,
I'll play now.
the Marino revolution's begun, which has made Ali a revelation. So it's
lovely.
It's great to see Ali getting back to his form. I think there is the potential chance of an England call-up again if he keeps his form going. Sam Allardyce, he was the manager. Gareth Southgate,
Yeah.
I think should look at him. In my opinion, he's been playing really, really well.
Who else is midfield for England?
You've got James Maddison,
Barkley, Henderson,
which in my opinion, I think Barkley should come out and Dele Alli back in because I don't rate Barkley to a massive sense. I don't think he's the greatest player in the world, but I think Dele Alli is a better player than Barkley by far,
and especially now he's got that fire lit underneath him.
Exactly.
I think we could see him in the team.
When you're under a manager like Mourinho, there's no such thing as having loads of bad performances because he's not the type of manager to go, right, yeah, you can stay in the team until you start getting good again. He will just take you out and put somebody else in, which at the end of the day, he could easily just stick Giovanni Lo Celso in and put him in his place. But for Rashford, he's certainly had a revelation this season himself. He's now got 12 goals in 13 games for club and country.
It's a great start.
And his 9 Premier League goals he's already got this season, leaving 1 short of his season best, which, considering he scored 9 already in December, is pretty good.
Yeah, he's on fire. It's the Rashford that we saw a couple of years ago when he first came on the scene.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's nice to see. It's nice to see United winning.
It's nice to see him get the excitement and the buzz about Rashford, not just as a player, just as a person in general, to get that buzz back about Rashford. Considering a couple of months ago we were in a position where Rashford was doing nothing. His confidence was really low. Manchester United, I know they're in a bit of a tricky situation now, but they were struggling down towards the bottom end of the table.
Slowly bringing it back up.
But I do think Rashford is one of the key players that will win Manchester United points at times.
Yeah.
And I think this was a great example of one of those games where he came clutch. He scored a penalty and he scored a pretty decent near post shot right at the start of the game, which in my opinion Gazzaniga should have saved. It was a shot hit with quite a bit of venom, but it was his Gazzaniga's near post.
It was a very weak keeping. I think he should have really got that.
Yeah.
It was his position that was strange.
It was really odd.
He moves to the...
I think he moved to the right.
He moved to the right, which I'm trying to say. The shot came in from there. No, he moves to the left to cover the right side of the goal, but he just leaves his bottom left so open that he has to do a last minute dive, and it just doesn't.
Yeah, by the time he'd moved to the left, it was too late to be able to make a save. But as I said, Manchester United moving to the top 6, which fair play to them.
Yeah,
it is a big result in the sense of things. Of course, it was Mourinho's first game back at Manchester United since his dismissal, which there's no bad blood between the Manchester United fans and Mourinho. He did give them probably their best time in recent years, which is a crazy
Ferguson
thing to say. But considering he got them to second, got them the Europa League, got them the Community Shield, I think, or was it the FA Cup as well? He got them the FA Cup.
Did he? I thought it was just Europa League and Community. FA Cup was
Van Gaal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Van Gaal got the FA Cup, which is the Community Shield, but he gave them trophies, which at the end of the day is what Manchester United's all about.
Yeah,
that's Manchester United. They want trophies. Even though he didn't get them the Premier League, they're a long way off getting the Premier League.
It will be a couple more years until we see United really contesting again.
Exactly. There's a lot of rebuilding to do. Do you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the right man to be the person that starts the new turn for Manchester United?
I don't know. I think it's like a box of quality streets, right? Hear me out. With quality streets, you always get a bunch of strawberry creams, orange stuff like that. But the best ones are obviously the green triangles. We all know this. If you don't, you're wrong. Or the green actual chocolate. But you never get much in. And that's what Ole is. Sometimes he'll look like a strawberry cream, but you get these flurries of a green triangle. And I think that's what he is, because, beating Spurs is a great result for Man United.
Yeah.
But then they'll go and lose to Astana. They go and lose to Astana.
Yeah.
And so green triangle Spurs, strawberry cream Astana.
No, it's a very, very fair point. I think the thing with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is he's very nitty-gritty, and I mean this in the sense of 1 week Manchester United will pick up points. For example, they played Norwich and they beat them, I think it was 2 or 3-0, and everybody was like, this is it, we've got the Manchester United back, they're scoring free-flowing goals, they look attacking, a very big attacking threat, and then the next week they go and lose. And you think to yourself, well, the thing is there needs to be a balance at the club, because the worry is if they keep going at the form that they're currently in, they will find themselves mid-table, depending on how the rest of the pack go for the rest of the season.
Do you think United sort of bottle the Europa League to focus on the actual league? Because I think it's still possible for them to get 4th.
Is it?
I think so.
I'll have a quick cheeky look, actually. And
the 4th, I think the gap between 4th and downwards is only not many points. I could be absolutely waffling here.
I'll have a quick look and see that. I don't think it's that tight. I thought there was one of the teams in their league which was
I thought, cause obviously,
in Europa
obviously
at 0
it's
points.
Liverpool, Leicester City. But who's in 4th? Who is in 4th is the real
Let's
question.
have a look. So in terms of Manchester United's group, so they are guaranteed to go through. Manchester United have got 10 points and AZ Alkmaar have got 9, so they're both through either way.
Never mind.
But I wouldn't say they bottled it. I think the game against...
I mean, like, should they bottle it? Like, not
should
really
they?
put much focus on it and really go for the league?
No, I think they should put some emphasis on the Europa League. It's a great
If you win,
opportunity to get back in the Champions League.
I forgot if you win, you get it. I really did. I'm just like, they get some nice money.
My one worry is the teams that come down from the Champions League. For example, one of Dortmund, Barca, or Inter.
I think it's
looking like Dortmund.
Especially when Slavia Prague run through it.
I think Dortmund's the likeliest team to go down. And then that's just one side. You've got to look at some of the other teams that might go down.
Yeah.
I think Atalanta potentially could go into the Europa League as another side that drops down. But they can still qualify for the Champions League in general. I just think it depends on who comes down to whether Manchester United can match them.
I think if a Dortmund comes down, no offense to United, I don't think they have a chance.
I think they'd give it a go. And I think considering Dortmund's in a bit of a tricky position themselves, Lucien Favre's doing okay. He's not doing amazing. He's struggling a little bit. He might
in the Champions League, I think they've been doing okay in terms of like a 1-goal loss. I know but
I mean, for Manchester United, they got 1 draw and a loss. The draw was against AZ Alkmaar in the Europa League was 0-0, and the loss was against Astana. But they were playing a pretty weakened side.
Well, it was a youth team: Jesse Lingard, Chong, Williams.
Yeah, it was. It was a weak side in the sense of things, and to be fair, they were already through anyway. I think so. To them, it doesn't really matter.
Give them experience.
But at the end of the day, I think it was certainly an interesting match. Manchester United v Spurs. We did obviously previously talk about Amazon Prime. What are your thoughts? Because in my opinion, I think it's really, really good.
Everything about it is absolutely great. Apart from there's only one problem: the internet. Obviously, and that's just the thing. Because you might have someone who's got bad internet who are going to be 3 minutes behind. Regardless of that, I think it's been great. The stats thing of it is, I think, class. Because let's say you are not an avid football fan, but you think you've got Amazon Prime already for the for like TV series. You think, I'll give football a watch. I haven't watched it in a while, and then you see, this is United's. There's a 78% chance of United winning this game because, and then they actually explain it. I think the problem with Sky coverage is, which in their own right is fair enough, they expect everyone, I think, already knows a lot about football.
Yeah.
Which I suppose is good because it's Sky Sports. Everyone, I think, if you've got Sky Sports, you know. But I'm really liking it.
I like the idea that you can you're able to go on to the commentating, for example. And you can actually switch it off as well. So If Martin Tyler's ever commentating, you can always just go, no, turn
don't
it off. We don't want that
disrespect him.
today. Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not a massive fan of Martin Tyler. I find his commentary boring, and I can happily say that live on air. I think his commentating has been quite terrible in recent years.
I think he just lost the passion.
Yeah, I don't know. There's certain moments with Martin Tyler where that excitement comes out again. When Company scored the goal against Leicester, the excitement of got his name now. Literally just said it. Martin Tyler. The excitement came out again, and you think to yourself, well, that's the Martin Tyler we know and love. You know, when Martial scored at Liverpool, he's there going, welcome to
maybe you
Manchester
just need
United.
some actual good games to commentate on.
True, but he's commentating on good games. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he'll be commentating on Manchester City versus Manchester United.
Probably.
And there'll just be a lack of excitement. While, for example, I'm a big advocate of Peter Drury, a very big advocate. He makes games behemoth. You know, no matter whether it be a Norwich versus Southampton, he makes such a small game sound massive in the context of things. And fair play to him. I'm glad even some of the commentators they brought in, Alan Shearer, the pundits and things like that. It's incredible.
For me, someone who doesn't really watch live football, I watch the highlights and match of the day, so I'm familiar with Alan Shearer. And so actually hearing him commentate does help, because I'm familiar with the voice, so I'm familiar with how he talks about football, and that helps. But I also like, as much as it's not a taboo subject, but obviously on Sky Sports, there are not many women presenters, and we've already sort of seen it with Amazon Prime with even just the pundits, which is nice to see a bit of diversity.
Well, they got Gabby Logan, who's presenting the first game. They've got Aluko, who's in doing some punditry work, and there's a couple of other presenters as well. And I do really like Amazon Prime. I'm a big advocate of the coverage they've done so far. They've not got any more games until Boxing Day, but they've certainly got a stellar set of games coming up, including Liverpool versus Leicester City, which is I think it's at 8 o'clock or 8:15 kick-off on Boxing Day, which for the fans is shocking. It's very, very poor. But for us as spectators, I'll take it, to be honest. I like it. I think it's quite good. But in terms of the midweek fixtures, they're the games that we talked about.
We do want
to briefly talk about Arsenal, who played last night. It is Freddie Ljungberg's second game in charge of the club as interim manager, and it's safe to say things aren't going too well in terms of club position and form.
We watched this game last night, thank you to Amazon Prime. And they look like a great team, Arsenal, but I think Brighton were probably lucky to get a win. I mean,
the worrying stat is 20 shots from Brighton.
Really? Never mind then. They weren't lucky.
To be honest, Brighton played a fantastic game, a really, really good game. The first goal was scored by Adam Webster to make it 1-0. And to be honest, after that, Arsenal looked quite rattled, in my opinion. And
when they went 2-1 down, they looked good. They were creating opportunity after opportunity, or even when it 1-0. And then as soon as it went...
I disagree, to be honest.
Really, I'm looking and just like, it'd be every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it'd just be and it's Aubameyang, like I said, but they just couldn't finish.
The best way to say it is Arsenal look lacklustre. They look very lacklustre, and I was talking about it to you last night, and I was talking about it to Kieran as well, who's not with us for the podcast this morning. But
he's too busy watching NFL.
But I was saying the issue is. There was a video put up online yesterday from Arsenal Fan TV. We know Arsenal Fan TV as the source of YouTube reactions. Content. And for me, I saw DT was talking about Ljungberg and saying Ljungberg needs to go before he ruins his legacy, which in my opinion is a load of rubbish.
He's a manager. You can't ruin a player's legacy at a club. He's got a great playing legacy. You just want to have a good managing legacy, that's all, and I think...
Exactly, and at the end of the day, you've got to look at things right and think to yourself, the first game he came in, he literally had 1 or 2 days to sort the squad out, get them together, and, go into that first match against Norwich. He's had a little bit more extra time now to be able to take the team and go, right, we're now playing Brighton, which is still time, but you can't expect a manager to just change things like that.
I do think he needs to get a result this weekend. He just needs a win, because he's had a week now.
Well, they're
And
playing
he's had
against
2 games as
West Ham away, which, in my opinion, is a tricky fixture. I mean, West Ham are still coming off the back of that win against Chelsea. They did lose against Wolves, which was a pretty lacklustre performance. But it's the type of game where West Ham would probably win it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean in the terms of things? I mean, Arsenal are now 10th in the league. They've got 19 points. They've got only 4 wins this season, which in the context of things is absolutely shocking. 4 wins, 7 draws and 4 losses. You all right?
Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
If not feeling too well, are you, unfortunately?
Well, better than yesterday.
Winter illness is kicking in, I think.
If we did this yesterday, it would not have been as high energy.
But the worrying thing for me is Arsenal's last win in the league was against Bournemouth in October.
Wow.
They haven't won a game since. They got a loss against Sheffield United.
What was the Bournemouth score, sorry, for you?
1-0, which was a goal from David Luiz.
1-0.
And they got a loss against Sheffield United, which was a 1-0 loss. They got a draw against Palace. They got a draw against Wolves. The loss against Leicester.
Which is fair enough.
The draw against Southampton, which is a terrible result. The draw against Norwich, which is a terrible result. And then the loss against Brighton. It's now at a point where do Arsenal just need to sign a manager now?
Who the?
I'm talking anyone.
Anyone?
In terms of... If their expectation at the club is to bring in someone like a Pochettino or Simeone, no offence, that's never going to happen.
They're not going to go to
Poch will never go to Arsenal. I'm saying that hand on heart, Poch will not go to Arsenal.
As much as obviously they got rid of him, but I think he was a Spurs. He wouldn't go to a London team.
No, the fans can dream, but in my opinion, Poch is the type of manager who he won't go to that club because he would never go to Barcelona because he was an Espanyol manager, and there's a massive rivalry between Espanyol and Barcelona.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't think he'd ever go to Arsenal.
Well, news came out of was it Allegri this week? Was it a tweet or something where he said, "I'm learning English"?
An Italian journalist, I think it was Fabrizio Romano, that basically tweeted out that Allegri's kind of confirmed, "I'm taking a sabbatical for the rest of the year, but I can confirm I am learning English in Milan."
It's a tease there.
It's a little bit of a tease, but
he's tugging the rope.
He's tugging the rope a little bit. I think in the terms of things, the question I was going to ask was, do Arsenal need to go out and sign a manager to steady the ship?
I think
in terms of things, because
it's got to be a steady the ship. They shouldn't get someone permanently in January.
Yeah,
because we know what the Arsenal fans like. If they have a bad end of the season, like, oh, he needs to go. He's had 6 months. It's like, yeah, look what he was left with.
Yeah, well, the worrying thing is the games just get worse from here. They've got West Ham away, which is going to be a tricky game in itself. They've then got to play Manchester City. It's on the 15th of December, 4:30 kickoff on a Sunday.
Yeah. Who they got in the Europa League as well?
Kieran said this is the type of game that Arsenal will probably win against City.
In
the Europa League, they've got Standard Liège, which is a must-win game. If Liège win, I think Arsenal are out, as far as I'm aware, because they lost against Frankfurt. Let me just see. Actually, no. It's if Liège win and Frankfurt win, then Arsenal would be out. But Arsenal are going away to Belgium to play Standard Liège. But then after that, they've got fixtures against Everton away, which, depending on what happens at Everton, they might start getting a run of form again. Bournemouth away, and then Chelsea at home before a game on New Year's Day against Manchester United.
For me, I genuinely don't think they'll win a game.
Do you not, really?
Well, can you load up fixture again, Sarah?
So, there you go, they've got a fixture list. I think Bournemouth is one they could pick up a result against.
No, for me, the only one I think will get West Ham. I think Standard Liège will beat them. They're away in Belgium.
Really?
I think City will beat them. Okay, sorry, I didn't see it. I forgot about Everton. I think that'll be a draw, actually. I think that the game against the lower teams will be draws.
I think they'll beat Liège, and the reason why I think they'll beat Liège is the pressure that would be on at that point.
Will the pressure become too much?
Ljungberg doesn't get a result against Standard Liège and Arsenal go out, that has got to surely be one of the most embarrassing campaigns Arsenal's ever had in terms of European competition.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. For a club like Arsenal to be knocked out in the group stages against teams like Standard Liège and Vitoria is embarrassing. Now, Frankfurt's a great side. They're not as good as what they were last year when they got Jovic and plays like that, but
they're still playing well.
Exactly. I think it'd be incredibly embarrassing. And at that point, I think that's when you start having to saying, well, let's just go get a manager, because Freddie Ljungberg is... He's got potential.
He's an assistant
He's
manager.
an assistant manager. He's got potential to be a manager, but I just think the pressure that's on him to take over is nerve-wracking for someone like Ljungberg. Going into your first proper job as a manager and having all this pressure put on you is going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, it will. It will be interesting, I think. Do they just stick out with Ljungberg till the end of the season?
I think so. Well, I don't know in that sense. Do they? That's the question.
Right, so I think for them, if they may possibly stick with Ljungberg to the end of the season, as long as they don't get relegated, which I don't think they will, I think if they just stick with Ljungberg till end of the season, get an Allegri or someone, just get a new known manager, because Arsenal are a big club, so a big manager will go there and rebuild. I think we've seen it with a lot of Premier League teams. It's got to be a rebuild season.
But the question is who do you bring in? I was saying to Kieran the other day, I think, in my opinion, I stick with the point that I think they should get Rafa Benitez. I think the time in terms of getting a manager in is tricky. There's not a great deal of top quality managers that are available right now.
No.
That haven't got a job. I mean, there's Laurent Blanc, who hasn't had a job for quite some time. Who's available? You've got Allegri, but he says he's taking a sabbatical.
So you have to
David
wait
Moyes.
until the end of the season. You imagine.
If David Moyes went to Arsenal, I think there'd be a national outrage. There'd be riots on the street of London. They'd be chanting for Kroenke to be out straight away.
I'd love it.
I don't think Kroenke would see another day without being barraged by Arsenal fans with abuse.
There is Poch. I don't think we'll go, but there is Poch.
I don't think Poch will. I think Poch will take the rest of the season off. I think.
I'd like to see Benitez really manage.
I just think
again
the time's right. The Chinese Super League season's just ending now, so in terms of things, it wouldn't be impossible compared to if you went for an Ancelotti, for example.
You'd have to.
It's halfway through the season.
He's not going to leave him.
Exactly, but the only issue I think for Rafa Benitez is the payout. How much have they got to pay Dalian Yifang to bring him in? Because Dalian Yifang spent quite a lot of money to get Rafa Benitez in the first place, so I'm pretty sure they're not going to just let him go
for nothing.
Exactly. So once again, they're another club where it's going to be interesting to see where things go. It's worrying.
It's very
and I mean the Premier League has been pretty poor in terms of form. I think Man City, Leicester, and Liverpool and Chelsea, to a slight extent, they're the only four teams that are really pushing well.
Even City, they've had a bad run of form in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, they've been slumping a little bit. I mean, the result against Newcastle was pretty poor in the context of things.
Yeah.
But they're the games that we've covered over the weekend. We're now just going to go into a little section for the rest of the highlights of the midweek games that occurred. So there was a game that did occur on Monday night that we forgot to talk about, which we'll talk about at the end. But one of the big games in Ligue 1 was Saint Etienne versus Nice. Patrick Vieira is under serious
I don't know.
pressure
Vieira
right
is
now.
the manager of Nice.
Yeah, he is, and he was doing a pretty decent job at the start, but he's finding himself under serious pressure
Where
now.
are they in the league?
They lost 4-1 to Saint Etienne, and they actually find themselves 14th in Ligue 1. 20 points. They're only 5 points off the relegation zone. In fact, his side have only won 2 of their 5 last games. It's very, very worrying form. I think very recently they're taken over by an English billionaire, and the aspirations were high to make Nice a club that were going to be fighting for European competition. And the fact that they are now 5 points already off the top 4 is a worrying sign in itself.
In fairness, 5 points, because we know all the leagues are close to you.
5
points is much. That's 2 wins, and all you need is a couple of teams to drop some points. But for a Nice, there shouldn't be 14.
It's a lot to ask when you've got 10 other teams that need to drop points.
Yeah.
The chances of that are very unlikely in the sense of things. And as I said, Patrick Vieira is under serious pressure to get results. In terms of the goals that were scored, it's in fact Claude Puel who manages Saint Etienne,
under pressure.
who's not under pressure. His sides are actually in 5th on 25 points. They're 1 point off a Europa League spot. But there was goals from Dennis Bouanga, who scored 2. Romain Hamouma and Wesley Fofana, who I believe used to be a Manchester City player, if I'm thinking of the right Fofana. And then there was a goal in the 14th minute by Kasper Dolberg, which made the score 1-1. But after that, it was safe to say St Etienne ran away with things. So that was one of the games in Ligue 1. The other match that occurred midweek was PSG versus Nantes. Now, PSG extended their lead at the top of the table in Ligue 1 to 5 points after goals from Mbappe and Neymar. Neymar did nearly score 2, however, one of the goals was chalked off by VAR, while Keylor Navas, who I've got to say has been an incredible signing for the club, made a couple of few key saves.
On loan, or
he is on loan.
Imagine getting Keylor Navas on loan.
I'm interested to know with Keylor Navas whether there's a clause in his contract to buy him out, because in my opinion, PSG need to buy him out now.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the PSG goalkeepers they've had in recent few years, they had Buffon last season, who came in, who it's safe to say didn't do too well.
No, he was aging.
Yeah, he was aging, and he was getting old. Sirigu in the past, he was a good goalkeeper,
Legend.
but he was never going to be an elite goalkeeper in the sense of things.
You couldn't see him at a Real Madrid or a Barca or a
exactly.
City.
While Keylor Navas has come in and he's certainly done a great job at the club so far. He was one of the key catalysts to PSG getting that 2-2 draw against Real Madrid a couple of weeks ago. And once again, he saved his club from losing points again against Nantes. And I've got to say, once again, as per usual, PSG running away with things.
I think it's NFL. There's a sport where you're only allowed a certain amount on wages and a thing. Do you think a league like this needs it just so PSG don't always run away with it? Because I'm sorry, but at least in the City, you've got in the Premier League, you've got a Salah to a Silva, a Kevin De Bruyne to a. Okay, there's no one comparing him. There's no one better or on level with him. But like Alisson and Ederson. Very similar goalkeepers, very similar. Like the City Liverpool team are very similar in few ways. Do you think Ligue 1 needs something to sort of constrict that, where PSG don't have a Neymar and yet the rest of the league are running around with a farmer?
No,
shouldn't.
I seriously don't. And the reason why I say that is, if you start putting salary caps on a big league like that, doesn't it theoretically mean that the rest of the other big leagues should do the same? You can't restrict a Champions League side from a budget, because if you say right, you've now got a strict wage and transfer budget for PSG, and then you're saying, well, they can't have Neymar and they can't have Mbappe. That's not fair on PSG as a Champions League side. I mean, when you look at other leagues around the world, for example, you look at teams where there's not a massive amount of big clubs, but there's always one or two. So let's say the Turkish league, for example. Right, yeah. I'm talking in smaller leagues. So like your Besiktas, your Galatasaray,
they're not doing well
your
Fenerbahce.
No, they're struggling, to be honest. They've got 0 points in their Europa League group. But if you were to say to them, well, you've got to have a transfer restriction on your budget, it's not fair in the sense of things. But I've got to say, it's as per usual for PSG, dominating the league. They've got a game in hand, which of course was the game we talked about on Wednesday, which is PSG versus AS Monaco, which was suspended because of heavy flooding, and that should hopefully be played in the near future.
Three space between, looking like 3 days between each game.
Exactly, which should be an interesting one, back to back.
Imagine if Monaco do the double.
It'd feel like a cup game in a way, wouldn't it? 2-leg tie. But the final game we're going to talk about is one where, as I said, we forgot about this match.
I don't know how we did
on the Wednesday podcast. This game actually happened on Monday night. It was an incredible game of football in Serie A. It was Cagliari versus Sampdoria, which ended 4-3. In the context of the game, Sampdoria found themselves 2-0 up in the 52nd minute. There was a penalty taken by Quagliarella, which he smashed in.
It was
absolutely smashed it into the goal. There was no chance that the goalkeeper was going to be saving it. And then there was a second goal by Gaston Ramirez, which found them 2-0 up.
No one does it like Gaston.
Well,
no one's strong like Gaston.
Ex-Hull City player for Kieran.
Yeah.
But then there was a goal from Raja Nainggolan, which made it 2-1, which was an absolute screamer of a goal.
It was a typical Nainggolan goal.
Exactly. And the thing about Raja Nainggolan, I've said this multiple times to you lot before, he does not like a simple goal. He really likes to to smash it into the back of the net.
He just wants the Goal of the Month awards every week.
I think he could have easily had the Goal of the Month award about 2 or 3 times now in Serie A. But then Quagliarella, 1 minute after 9-goal and screamer, decided,
I can do better.
Anything you can do, I can do better, and decided to absolutely lever in a volley. It was, I think it was just inside his box from quite a pretty tight angle, to be honest, and he smashed it into the top corner.
That made it 3-1, didn't it?
Yeah.
I remember we were sat down and you were just checking it.
Yeah, I was.
Sampdoria 3-1. Oh my god, 9-goal and Quagliarella scored great goals. And then I was like, 3-1.
Yeah,
done dusted. Then you just went.
You think it's over. But then it went 3-2. A couple of minutes later, in fact 4 minutes later, João Pedro, who's been on the form of his life, the Brazilian, made it 3-2. Things got a little bit more interesting because after that, he scored again 2 minutes later to make it 3-3. And Eve said, anything 9-goal and Quagliarella can do, I can do better, because then he also scored an incredible volley himself.
I say if
3-3.
You need to go watch the highlights of this game.
It's a very, very incredible match. If you haven't seen the game, go on YouTube when you can and search up the highlights, because it will definitely go down as one of the games of the season for European football, to be honest.
Definitely.
And then Alberto Serri, a young Italian striker, in the 96th minute, clinched all 3 points for Cagliari. After being 3-1 down, they brought it back 4-3 in surely one of the best games of the season.
I really like Cagliari. Just because I think if they didn't have Nainggolan, I don't think they'd be doing as great. They've got a great team, but just the story of Radja is great.
It's an incredible story.
His wife got poorly, so he moved away so they could be together in I think it's her home town. And then he was like, I'll come play for you.
I mean, he's on loan, but
he took a massive wage cut.
He took a really big wage cut from Inter Milan. I really do hope that there's a clause in the contract for him to sign, because once again, I think Cagliari would put out all of the stops to sign him. I think it's not just him. Giovanni Simeone came into the club. Yeah. He's been doing really well. João Pedro, who's been there for a couple of seasons, is really starting to get into the form of his life. And in terms of the context of the league, Cagliari actually find themselves in 4th place now, 8 points above 7th place Napoli, which is the next spot where there's no European spots, and it's looking very, very comfortable for the side now, who actually haven't lost in their last 5 matches. They've won 4 of the last 5, and things are looking very, very tasty now for Cagliari. And it's an exciting time, because if this side get into the Champions League, very similar to Atalanta, it'll be very interesting to see where the club goes. But they are all of the midweek fixtures that we've covered. It's certainly been interesting to look at them. Just before we do go, we're just going to talk about the schedule. We talked about it in the last episode of the Top Corner podcast, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, is available on YouTube now. So if you are watching on YouTube, just click on our channel, give it a little like and a subscribe, and the podcast is there.
I said the last week's podcast was a bit of a shambles in terms of...
I wouldn't say it was a shambles. It was funny.
It was very mistakable.
A lot of mistakes, but funny mistakes. If you want to have a look at the games, we talked about some of the games we talked about last week, which included the likes of Villarreal versus Valencia and a couple of games like that. But this week we talked about Atletico Madrid versus Barcelona, the Serie A title race, and the Manchester derby, which is occurring on Saturday evening. But in terms of the schedule for the rest of the month for the podcast, of course, we've got our usual podcast on Wednesday, the 11th of December, which will be 1:15 while 3:15. We'll then be live in the morning on the Monday, 16th of December. We'll be here for the Champions League and Europa League draw.
That'll
you do not want to miss
Josh
that.
And Kieran D.
It will be indeed. Kieran L won't be here because he's going home for Christmas.
He's going home for Christmas.
He's driving home for Christmas. But we'll be doing that draw. It's 10:30 while 1 p.m. I think it'll probably be us two to start, and then Kieran will join us later on. But we'll be live on YouTube and Periscope once again for that. And then on the 18th of December, it will be the final Christmas podcast as a group. Once again, it will be 1:15 while 3:15. And then after that, there'll be a couple of little videos going up in the meantime. We might do little bite-sized episodes again. We'll, live live record our Skype calls and things like that. But then after that, the next main podcast won't be until January the 8th will be the next one after that.
And there'll be a lot to talk about.
Which, I think there'll be a fair amount of news.
It might be a bit of a longer one.
So that is the schedule that we'll have for the rest of the month. As I said, you do not want to miss out on the Champions League and Europa League draw. Very similar to the FA Cup draw. We'll be covering that live over 2.5 hours.
It's a tasty one.
It'll certainly be a tasty one with me, Rowan, and as you said before, Kieran D will be joining us, which it'll be certainly nice to have us all here just before Christmas. So in terms of things, thank you very much for joining us on the Top Corner podcast bite-size edition. I hope you have enjoyed the stream. We will be back again on Wednesday. And
thank you.
I want to say thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Josh, for joining me.
He's not feeling the greatest in terms of health, but now he can get back into bed.
I'm dedicated to the cause.
Dedicated to the cause. We like to see that. So once again, thank you very much for joining us on the Top Corner podcast. We will see you on Wednesday. But in the meantime, let's hope nobody else gets sacked in the Premier League.
Please not.
Please no.
Bye-bye.
See you later.